Well, hello, my name's Andy Tidy and welcome to Canal Hunter. Today's episode brings us back onto the Balls Hill branch. Today I've come to the Ridgeacre pub. In our last episode we explored the Ridgeacre branch and its associated arms. Today we're going to finish the job that we started. We're going to follow the route of the old Brindley Canal through all the way from Birmingham, which has come over the hill at Smethwick, and now we're going to go through from Ridgeacre and Swan Village, and we're going to go through to Balls Hill. The reason the old Birmingham Canal was built in the first place was to reach the coalfields of Dolds Hill and Balls Hill. Journey's End for Brindley's Canal was the area at Balls Hill. Lots of collieries, easy to get at, pretty much on the same level as Birmingham. The old canal, which we explored in the last episode, came through and is weeded up, and when we got as far as the Ridgeacre pub we found that the Black Country New Road had completely severed the line of the canal. Well, just beyond the Ridgeacre pub there is an intriguing little section that's still in water. Part of it lies behind me now. This is one of the old railway interchange basins, and there are a lot of them scattered around the BCN. It's an immensely busy interchange basin, now completely overgrown, derelict. Bit of a shame really, but it still exists, tucked here in the woods by the Ridgeacre pub. In fact, it's the canal interchange basins that gave the BCN the reason to continue to exist right through to the 1950s, whereas many of the other canals disappeared 100 years before. See, the canals weren't the perfect means for transport right here in the Black Country, but by the time the Industrial Revolution got going, the canals were so embedded as part of the transport network, there was no room to shoehorn in another set of railways. So what they did, being pragmatic, was to bring the railways into areas where there was a bit of space, like here in Swan Village, and they constructed loading bays and sheds, and then for the last mile or two they'd pop the goods onto the boats and move them into the factories. But anyhow, the purpose of today's episode is to go beyond where the Ridgeacre pub stands today, which is to say, to go beyond Swan Village. And for that, we're going to head off up the line of the Balls Hill Canal, seeing what we can find right the way through to its terminus. What we see here is in many ways typical of lost canals. There is a depression in the ground, a saucer-like depression, swings around as they're being turned into a public footpath. Possibly one of the easiest ways to explore this area is to get on your bike and go and have a look. I decided to give you a little GoPro moment as I'm riding along the half-mile section, but this was the exact line of the old Balls Hill branch. It's a last look back down the section up from Swan Village. The line of the canal then comes through across Richmond Street into this area of open land beyond. It would be lovely to think that this dip actually was the line of the canal on the canal bed. In actual fact, the line of the canal bed pretty much followed the line of this road, and it curved its way around, following the line of the houses at the far side and exiting over there. And having followed the line of Brickhouse Lane, the bed of the canal followed faithfully along underneath this car park. Again, there's a real reluctance to put buildings on top of the lines of canals due to the contamination and subsidence that's possible. So this one's just been turned into a car park, and it then bends around to the right at the far end. The line of the canal came through, curving around, still following the line of this car park, and continued on through here in this gap, leading through behind those block gates at the far end. And here's a curious little feature which you might not expect. Here, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, there is a boatman's pub. Okay, it's called the Beehive. Doesn't look too prosperous these days, but this lies right beside the line of the old Balls Hill Canal, and is therefore almost certainly pub frequented by the boatmen and the brickworkers who used to work in the brickworks surrounding this area. From here, trekking the line of the canal becomes really something of a challenge. The line of the canal came through, following that line of the minibuses, and goes into the trees beyond. The trouble is I can't follow it because of this. Those of you who are familiar with the Black Country will know this road well. And there's Asda beside the Bulls Hill Canal, source of all those lovely shopping trolleys that block our path, and Tipton, the hill beyond. So I think what we'll have to do is get down around the end and have a look at what we can find from the other end of this hill. But we're not going to get there from this end, so I think it's a case of get back in the car and go around and pick it up with far. Here we find ourselves not far from the back of the Beehive pub. I can hear the same sounds of the factories clanging away in the background. And what we find at this top of the ridge is about 100-foot wide gap. It's rough land. It's actually sheeted off at the moment, but there was a gap in the fence, so I came through. And if you imagine a sort of a 35-40 foot channel running down there, it's not a big stretch of the imagination to think that this was indeed the line of the Bulls Hill branch. So we'll carry on to those new developments at the end and see what traces we can find up there. When you're hunting for lost canals, sometimes you just pick up the fragments where you can. You also pick up the clues. So here's a new modern development. Interestingly, it's called Waterside Street. It's standing at the top of a hill. I see no water, but I do hear a lost canal calling. The actual line of the Bulls Hill Branch Canal followed this open green ground and then continued on to the left of the Miners' Arms, which is the white building. So that gap that exists between the buildings is the line of the old canal. Whilst Gold's Green Bridge is no more, there is a rather enticing section of abandoned land, exactly the same width as the canal. It comes off the road at an angle, which is exactly how the map predicts it will. Well, Pike Street still seems to exist. Mind you, looking up it, this modern industrial estate seems to bear no relationship whatsoever to the old mining communities shown on the map. One thing I've found time and time again as I do these canal hunts is how, although the surroundings change massively, the road layouts remain remarkably static. In this case, I've walked up to the end of Pike Street and it forms a T at the end. If you refer back to the old maps, sure enough, there is exactly the same T-shaped formation, and the canal ran through from beneath this workshop, under another car park, following the level out across there. Even the bend in the wall exactly mirrors the old 1810 map for the Bulls Hill Branch Canal. It's all a far cry from rows of little terraced houses with gardens out the back. I would have liked to have explored Puddingbag Street, if only for its name, but sadly that's no longer in existence. Sometimes there's a bit of a peril of using an 1890 map to move through a modern city, but this is Shaw Street. Where we're standing now is on a bit of a hump, so this will be where the Bulls Hill branch came across and followed behind these gates and followed the line of the trees in the distance. And I'll see if I can pick up anything more beyond, but it's very industrial around here, so it's hard to get any access to see if any remains are there. I would have loved to say that the end of this canal had some spectacular finale. Sadly, that wasn't to be the case. There used to be an aqueduct over the railway, but that's been demolished. What we're seeing here is the position over the railway line, which is now the metro. And then there was the Bulls Hill Basin in this piece of waste ground. Sadly, every remnant has gone, which is a little bit disappointing. Whilst I'm here at the site of the Gold's Hill Bridge at the end of Shore Street, I can't resist taking this little path down here. It's not, strictly speaking, leading to any part of the Bulls Hill branch network, but it is a fascinating little destination and it fits very nicely, so I'm just going to pop down there and show you what's at the bottom. This is, in fact, is a little old miner's track. It leads down to the coalfields around Holloway Bank, and if you take the track down to the bottom, you'll come to the Tame Valley Canal. Tame Valley Canal itself was built in 1844, a completely straight waterway, a much later construction. However, what I've really come to show you is just over the railway tracks. They're about to be replaced, put down with a new tramway, but they in themselves cover over another old abandoned canal called the Danks Branch. The Danks Branch came off from just below the Riders Green locks and went on for about half a mile, and as you can see from the map, it went past Gold's Hill, and although there's absolutely no trace of the canal itself, at the entrance underneath the Black Country Road you can see sort of an entrance and a winding hole, and just to one side of it you can also see an old horse ramp leading down from the towpath, absolutely filled with rubbish these days, but it's definitely the towpath leading into the Danks Branch. If you carry on underneath the Black Country Road, you'll come to the first railway crossing in the centre of the map you're looking at now. It's really difficult to get under it. The western side has been blocked up, but the eastern side is currently accessible, and underneath you can see the old towpath edging the canal centre. The canal track itself has been filled in, but it's good to see the old towpath still surviving underneath the railway bridge. And then just a little bit further to north you can see another crossing where the canal comes through, and this time the canal deck, the bridge actually runs above the canal deck. So you can see the bridge and you can climb underneath. I think the towpath has been buried because the headroom is a bit low, but there you go. It's a little snippet, and that's the Danks Branch for you, closed in 1960. Well, that brings the Canal Hunter Series 1 to a close. We've finished the exploration of the old Birmingham Canal all the way through from Birmingham and its lost loops over the Smethwick summit, around into the Ridgeacre area, and finished up at Bulls Hill. Slightly irritating that there's not a grand finale. I can't do this final wash up with the backdrop of an impressive old aqueduct, which is what I would dearly like to have done, but that's just not the case. However, I hope you've enjoyed coming on this journey with me. I have had quite a number of requests, people wanting to know what are the tools of my trade, what have I used, what materials have I gone to, where have I found my pictures, my maps and those sort of things. So I'll put together one last episode just to let you know what I use and where you can find it. But that isn't the end of Canal Hunter. We have barely scratched the surface of the other 60 miles, and I think for the next series we'll carry on with the Brindley Canal, but we will go back up to Spon Lane Junction, and then we'll follow the old canal all the way through to Wolverhampton and pick up all the lost bits going out from there. But anyhow, that's all for another day. So thank you for joining me on this trip. I hope you've been prepared to bear with me as I've learned the technology to go with this process. Happy hunting for the future, and good luck.